بلدي بلدي Manitoba.
Nunjaba, Manitoba, Nunjaba.
igihugu canje n'Uburundi.
Ako ay galing sa Pilipinas. My home is Manitoba.
Manitoba, a place with breathtaking natural beauty, forged from rock and water and blue sky. A province created by many different cultures coming together. Like the first people of Manitoba, we continue to welcome new residents from all over the world. Together, we build this great province.
Thank you for coming, girls. We're going to start with our smudge, and then we'll get right into our presentation with Cecil and Sandra.
These girls are learning about their culture. The smudge is a sacred tradition of purification practiced by Manitoba Aboriginal people. Tasha Spillett meets with the girls each week. She is helping them build self-confidence. She knows they must be strong to deal with the perceptions that many people have about Aboriginal people.
They know that they're different from Western peoples or peoples of European descent. They know that they look different. They know that their family structures are different. They know that they use different speech. And to be able to give an understanding of what that difference is and to find pride in who they are and to find pride in their differences is really important. My mom is Aboriginal. She's Cree from northern Manitoba, and my dad is Trinidadian. And I think that affected my own work because it gives me a special or a unique lens when doing work between the Aboriginal and the newcomer community, because I can very much identify with both.
Aboriginal people are an important part of Manitoba's past and our future, but they face challenges.
As a result of colonization and the genocide that happened on this continent, us as First Nations people have had our identity taken away from us. And it's just in the last few generations that our people are beginning to reclaim their identity and moving towards restoring our health and our balance in our communities.
In this video, you will learn more about the history of Manitoba's Aboriginal people and how that history affects all of us today. Aboriginal people are the first inhabitants of the land known today as Manitoba. Different groups or tribes existed for thousands of years. First Nations, Métis and Inuit developed unique languages, cultures, and spiritual beliefs. They did not live in permanent settlements. They moved to stay close to the wild animals which they needed for food and clothing.
Absolutely. This is where you would have been living. This would have been your day-to-day home. What those are used for, but I just want
This tour at the Manitoba Museum is giving newcomers some history about Aboriginal people. It's a great opportunity to explore cultures that many people know little about.
There was only the image from the Western type of movies about the Indians hunting the bisons, and that was it.
What I hope to learn here today is to better understand Aboriginal history, Aboriginal social organizations.
We're going to step back and we're going to see what life was like prior and how it changed.
Aboriginal life changed significantly in the late 1800s. Immigrants began arriving from Europe to farm the land and build towns. Aboriginal people showed them how to make use of the many natural resources. Settlers were introduced to new foods, new medicines. Settlers used Aboriginal language to name their new home. Manitoba means where the Creator sits, and Winnipeg means muddy water. But Aboriginal culture was also affected.
If you feel the side here, well, that doesn't quite feel like bison skin. This particular teepee is one that would have been made after European contact, so it's made out of canvas, like a cotton, something that wasn't around before. If this was before European contact, it would have been made more out of the stuff that you're sitting on.
settlers brought guns, liquor, and disease. More and more people arrived, taking more and more land. The Aboriginal people were no longer free to move with the animals. They were restricted to specific areas called reserves. Aboriginal children were taken from their families and held in residential schools. The goal of these schools was to discourage Aboriginal language and practices.
The children who were taken away from their families were affected in a number of very significant ways. First of all, we know that abuse was rampant in the schools. We know that there were children who were physically abused, sexually abused, and psychologically abused. But even if you put that aside, imagine what it would be like for the moment if somebody came to your house one day and said, "We're taking your children away from you. We're not going to let you see them again until they're teenagers and we're done with them. We're not going to let them learn your language. We're not going to let them know your culture. We're not going to let them leave that institution. We're not going to let them see their brothers and their sisters while they're in that institution. And in fact, we're going to tell them that everything about their culture is not only wrong, but it's evil." The major aftermath of the residential school policy was the breakdown in family structure in Aboriginal Canada. And the direct result of that has been the fact that families are in a total state of dysfunction. They don't understand who they are. They don't understand what they belong to or where they belong as a people. So you have this entire aspect of what sociology calls disassociation. You're not connected to anything. You're not connected to the people that you are physically connected to, but you're also not connected to the people that society wants you to belong to, and that is white urban Canada. So you don't belong anywhere. And if you don't belong anywhere, then you don't feel any responsibility to anything, including yourself. And that's the real problem, I think, that we've created for ourselves.
Well, I know that we see things like drunken Indians or dirty or stupid or uneducated and all those sort of negative things that are based in misperceptions. And what my hope for my girls or the Butterfly Girls, is that they have such a strong connection to who they are as Aboriginal women and such a pride in that those stereotypes don't affect them in a detrimental way.
A stereotype is an opinion or generalization that people have about a person or group based on prior assumptions. Prejudice is attitudes against a person or group because of race, gender, or religion, based on judgments formed without accurate knowledge.
Yes,
So nice
thank you.
to meet you.
It's great to meet you.
Veronica Dick is a Manitoba Métis and senior member of the provincial government. On this day, she's meeting with staff at the Winnipeg Art Gallery.
Yeah, so it's not just about the diversity of the collection or what you're bringing through at particular times, but it's also multi-layered. I am Métis Cree, so my own personal ancestry is a mixture of the French and the Cree nation. For myself, as a mother and as a grandmother, it is important to me that my children and my grandchildren understand what those teachings are, what that traditional knowledge is, and that they carry that as they grow so that it gives them the strength to proceed through their life in a good way, to follow those paths, the journey that they're on, and have access to that knowledge, that traditional knowledge, and those important values that come with the Métis Nation.
Specific cultures, but you can also do it in such a way that you have an Inuit piece next to a Métis work, next to a European, next to a Canadian work,
right,
that they're on the same.
One of the important teachings that I was able to hear and learn from my father is the teaching of the Métis sash, and recognizing the value of what's contained in the actual sash itself. Each of these strands represent a different nation, and it's the coming together of nations and the realization that our own individual values or beliefs are woven within this sash. And when you look at this sash and you see all of the individual strings or the individual threads, they are relatively weak. But when you weave them together, you can see the breadth of the sash and the strength of the sash. And that's what the Métis Nation is about. And that's what multiculturalism and diversity is about, right from the beginning. When the efforts were underway to expand Canada to include Manitoba, the provisional government at that time was being led by Louis Riel. And Louis Riel, as a Métis person, fought very hard for ensuring that the rights of the Métis people were captured within the agreements that would lead to Manitoba becoming a part of Canada. And the SASH clearly helps us to remember and to understand why it was so important that we recognize the diversity of Manitoba right from the beginning.
And that Canadian environment, which we are now trying to create with the influx of new peoples into this country, is the environment we should have tried to create back in the 19th century, but we didn't.
When we became more aware of the impact of residential schools, and we began to talk about that publicly, and we began to use our voices to influence decisions that were being made around policy at whatever level of government we're talking about, that created the opening of what I believe are a multitude of doors. It created an awareness within our communities that we not only have the right to participate fully in society, but we also have the capacity.
There's so much beauty in our community, and there's so much beauty in the resilience of our community as well. And I think that if people challenge themselves to look past it's easy to see people in their dysfunction, but if people put the challenge upon themselves to see the beauty in our community and all the positive things that go on, then that would allow them to move past the perceptions that they may carry.
Tasha is doing what she can to build a better future. She mentors her butterfly girls. She started a cross-cultural group aimed at eliminating racism. She took part in a project that put Aboriginal youth on an island with young newcomers. The goal was for each to share their experiences with the others.
And we're here today and this week to share with each other the different paths that our lives have taken.
The Aboriginal community has a lot of strength and positive energy in it, and we'd like to be able to share that with other communities. And specifically the newcomer community, because we have a lot of similarities between the two communities. We both face a lot of hardships in Canada. Even though Aboriginal people, this is our home territory, we're still displaced people on our own continent. And that because we're two communities that face adversity, we can work together to find ways to better the situations of our communities.
What we're looking at here is a mural that's depicting one idea of how the world would have been created according to Aboriginal.
I just came here 3 months ago, and I didn't know about these Aboriginal people, how they suffers and where they came from. After this a tour, it's a very wide information for me, very deep information for me to know about how the natives, why the natives behave, and what is the reason behind it.
Learn and try to understand. Don't assume, don't act. First get the information, the background information, because most of the people just see the problem and try to act on it. But first ask the question and learn, find the information, and then you will understand why is that happening.
It is important because we are living together with Aboriginal people, we are working with Aboriginal people, we are going to parties with them, so we are in the same society, and I think that each people could understand each other.
Manitoba's Aboriginal people succeeded for thousands of years, and their success continues today.
And I think it's a wonderful time to be living as an Aboriginal person in Manitoba and in Canada.
Aboriginal people make up the fastest growing segment of the Manitoba population. Aboriginal people are leaders in government, the arts, education, media, and many other communities. Murray Sinclair is Manitoba's first Aboriginal judge.
As an elder once said to us in one of the meetings that I was at, he said, if you want to talk about reconciliation with me, he says, you have to stop talking like you own this place, because you don't. We do too. And that's where we start.
Manitoba is a province that's been committed to the values of multiculturalism, the value of diversity, the value of respect, the recognition of different nations coming together and sharing their knowledge, their traditions, and their voices. Here in Manitoba, we not only value that, but we celebrate it. And communities work hard to ensure that they are welcoming, that there is opportunity for all nations to participate at the community level.
We all share this city. We all share this Winnipeg community in a broad sense. So we all have a responsibility to make sure that everyone feels safe and welcome inside the whole Winnipeg community. When you drop a pebble into still water, the first ripple is very small, and then the next ripple gets bigger, and it only gets bigger from the center out. And so that's how we should be able to see the individual contributions we make.
Aboriginal people as a group consist of the First Nations, Métis and Inuit people. The First Nations people were the original inhabitants of the land now known as Manitoba. Reserves and residential schools changed Aboriginal culture and their way of life. Aboriginal people today suffer many challenges because of their loss of culture. Understanding Aboriginal history is important in preventing prejudice and stereotypes. Although faced with challenges, Aboriginal people today are celebrating their culture and redefining their role in society. As we've seen in this video, Aboriginal people are contributing in all walks of life as teachers, judges, government officials, and community leaders. This demonstrates the spirit of Manitoba, a province where there is opportunity, acceptance, and inclusivity that benefits us all.